Boom, we are live.
Hi, Julia. Good to see you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And for those of you who are catching this, if you're not familiar with CityClips, we are focused on covering all things North FL business and tech. I'm really excited about David Cummings hopping on today. This is our 90th episode, and I'll explain a little bit about how I managed to get this to happen because I didn't think that this could happen. Let me do a quick intro for those who are not familiar with you. David Cummings is the CEO of Atlanta Ventures. He's an entrepreneur, investor, and startup community building company that was acquired by Salesforce for $95 million and went on to create Atlanta Tech Village, one of the nation's largest hubs for startups. At Atlanta Ventures, David works closely with founders to launch and scale tech companies. He's passionate about building systems where entrepreneurs can grow, thrive, and make a lasting impact. Thank you for hopping on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so there's so many things I heard to just go back to the beginning. You grew up in Tallahassee.
I did, yeah. I was born and raised in Tallahassee, so my family moved to Tallahassee in late 1979. And I was born in early 1980 and lived in the same house my entire childhood from the day I was born to the day I went to college, right off of Kearney, way off of Thomasville Road. And so I'm a Tallahassee native.
And you still have family here. That's how we met. I met Jeremy, your brother, Jeremy Cummings, also an entrepreneur. And I was like, I'll get him on the side podcast. And he's like, you should have my brother on. I was like, okay, if we can make that happen, sure. So yeah, you went to Duke University. Is like, were you planning on leaving Tallahassee at some point? Did you want to go to FSU? FSU is a big college for everybody who grew up here. Like, what made you decide to leave?
So I had started my first software company when I was a student at Lincoln High School. And so if I rewind a couple more years, I was on a traveling baseball team. And so we'd travel all around to Apalachicola and Thomasville, Georgia, all around the area. And a friend of mine in 8th grade gave me this book, Teach Yourself C in 21 Days. And so I always loved computers. I always loved video games. So once I got that first book on writing code and building apps, I was hooked. And so I was lucky that at an early age, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to build tech companies and I wanted to do things related to entrepreneurship and startups. And so when I was in high school, as you alluded to, a bunch of my friends were going to FSU and a bunch of friends were going to the University of Florida. My dad and my brother, Jeremy, had both gone to UNC Chapel Hill. And so my older brother had gone to the University of Michigan. And so I wanted to be the child that went a different direction and said,
the rebel.
Exactly, the rebel. And so I applied to Duke, thinking that it'd be a great spot for, continuing to get better at computer science in college and all the other fun things in life. And so I had started my software company in 10th grade. It was right around the .com boom. And so I built a website for an orthodontist. I built a website for a lawyer in town. I built a website for the Minco Auto Parts that's over near TMH Hospital. It's still there today. And so I was building websites just, as one would do. And so after I built a website, I would turn it over to the small business owner. And back then, there weren't any easy ways to update or maintain a website. So nowadays, we take it for granted. You got great systems like Wix and Squarespace and WordPress, of course, and on and on. But back then, those tools didn't exist. And so when I got to college, I kept doing the same. I kept building websites for sororities, and I built websites for different departments at Duke, and I built websites for some different nonprofits in Durham, North Carolina. And so after I built tons of websites, the proverbial light bulb went off. I want to build a content management system, a way for business people to update and maintain their own website. And so in my junior year of college, I pitched the idea to a professor that I had my friend, angel investor. And then I dropped out of school, had a little bit of angel investing or angel investor money. And then 9/11 hit. So September 11th, 2001. And obviously it was devastating to the world, but it was also devastating to the tech industry. And so it became sort of a recession within it after the .com boom and all the crazy things that happened during the .com heyday. And so I went back to school after dropping out, finished my degree, and thankfully we had signed a handful of customers on this system to make it easy to build a website, a hotel management company based in Atlanta, And so they had a portfolio of 27 hotels. And at the time, hotel websites were all individuals. So if it was the Holiday Inn Express Tallahassee.com, whoever owned that hotel managed that website. Nowadays, it's all centrally managed back at corporate, but back then they were all different. And so the software that we had built was used by this hotel management company based in Atlanta, and I wanted to be right there with them. So they were kind enough to offer for some sublease space. And so I moved into the hotel management company's office, and we stayed there for a little over a year before we got our own first office. And so it was just a great experience to be right there with a customer in their physical office. And then it was also a great entree into getting to know a new city and meeting a bunch of other entrepreneurs and people in the community. And so that's how I went from Tallahassee to Duke to Atlanta.
Oh, that's so cool. So it's not like you envisioned, oh, one day I am going to start Atlanta Tech Village. You know,
I was never really a part of a personal roadmap. Atlanta was growing up in Tallahassee, Atlanta was the place we would go to for like a Braves baseball game, or sometimes we would drive to Atlanta for cheap flights, or we would go to Six Flags. So Atlanta was a spot that I was comfortable with coming from. Growing up in Tallahassee, there was no master plan to get there, just because that's where our biggest customer was when I graduated from college.
And you mentioned earlier in our conversation that Atlanta wasn't Atlanta today. Obviously, at that time, I think, my husband's Georgia Tech alumni, there's nothing really around the campus. It was just downtown. Now there's so many cool things. You got IKEA.
Yes.
Atlantic Station.
Yeah. And you probably have 50 new skyscrapers that are built, right around the campus. It's really amazing how it's transformed. So when I moved to Atlanta, we were roughly about 3 million, a little over 3 million in the metro population. And today it's about 6.5 million. So the city's doubled. The metro region has doubled in size from 3.5 to 6.5 million. And so now Atlanta as a metro region is the 6th largest metro in the United States. So being in a city that just had millions and millions of new people that have moved to the region has been really fun, because that's helped the startup community grow. And so that's created just so many more entrepreneurs and startups, and just that kind of great activity in the region.
Now, is Pardot, is that a completely different software, I guess? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, so the one I started in college to make it easy to update websites to is Hannon Hill. And so Hannon Hill is the name of a street in Tallahassee. So if you go down Central Road and you go into the Buckhead neighborhood of Tallahassee, the main road in Buckhead and Tallahassee is Hannon Hill. South Hannon Hill Drive is the name of the road. And so I named my first company.
Oh, that's great. I love that story.
Yeah. And so then the second company I started called Pardot in 2006. We were working really hard to sell this content management software. Again, think of WordPress. But before WordPress was even invented, and I personally started for the first several years heavily involved in the software development side. So writing lots of code, doing a lot of product management, and then the business didn't grow very much. And so I had that experience of walking through the desert, wondering why the startup wouldn't grow, even though we had such an amazing product. And so, yeah, I was off on a journey to learn about sales and marketing and go to market and customer acquisition and online marketing and cold calling and everything you can imagine with it, And so as part of that, I just devoted trying to do sales and marketing for a website management product. I realized that the tools in the market weren't designed for the business marketer at the time. We were using B2C marketing tools like Constant Contact or MailChimp on the email side, like Google Analytics for the website, traffic, different CRM tools for the sales side, but nothing was connecting them. Nowadays, we take it for granted, but it didn't exist back then. And so we invented it with Pardot, and so we invented B2B email marketing. We invented forms management and lead scoring and grading and automated CRM integration and drip email programs. And so that just wasn't a thing. But thankfully the timing was right, and started that company in early 2007. And 5 years later, we were at about 14 million of recurring revenue, over 1,000 customers, all bootstrapped. And then we sold the business to start to full exit in 5.5 years, and to do it in a way that was very do-it-yourself, no venture capital, no West Coast investors was quite an amazing experience. And so we sold that business in late 2012.
Wow, that's probably one of the, I mean, that's the thing. Atlanta tech ecosystem is huge now. And during those days, like you said, I think you were probably one of the first pioneers.
It was pretty quiet. Back then, we would typically have, I don't know the exact numbers, but we typically have like 1 to 2 venture capital fundraisings per year. Now we have it once a week, or multi-funded startups, and you don't have to raise venture capital. There's lots of great ways to build a business, but now we just have a lot more startup activity across the whole stack.
And you're still investing, and I know you've had some big wins. I'm a big fan of Calendly.
Yes, Calendly. It's an amazing product, and it was an amazing story. So end of that year, so we sold the business in October, and in the next month, November, was under contract to buy a 100,000 square foot building right in the heart of the financial district in Buckhead, right next to the train station, right next to an interstate exit, and closed on that right after Christmas. The largest tech startup center in the Southeast. We're the 4th largest in the United States, 103,000 square feet, 5-story building, 272 parking spots in our parking deck, 1.5 acres of land on a really, really prominent street corner in Atlanta, one of the busiest in Buckhead. And we set out to build a great place for entrepreneurs to success, other interesting entrepreneurs. It's about creating an environment where, by participating in the community, the chance and scale of success goes up. And so, as an example, we just had another exit from a startup that was started in the tech village, grew in the tech village, which was called Prize Picks, and Prize Picks was days ago. They sold for like $4 billion, and it was started right in the tech village, right in Atlanta. And so in the end of 2012, acquired the building, then spent 2 years renovating it, creating this amazing space, really awesome rooftop patio, great community coffee shop, and we were really lucky on our timing. We rode the wave of software as a service, and we rode the wave of cloud computing. The startups that are in there now or have graduated have raised over $3 billion of venture capital. They've created over $14 billion of enterprise value. So it's been an awesome run. It's been about 13 years now with the tech village. And so back to your previous question, the story on Calendly. So 2014, 2 years into the tech village, a friend of mine said, "David, you got to meet this great entrepreneur who just moved into the tech village. His name is Tope Awatona." And so I reached out to him, and we can be an enterprise software sales rep for 10 years, really learning how to sell, complicated software. And as part of that experience on the side, he had done a few different ventures that didn't work out. And after a while and some success as a sales rep, he went all in to be a full-time entrepreneur. And it was a different category, e-commerce business, and it failed miserably. He had one final idea to go after with his remaining life savings, which as an enterprise software with prospects and with customers. And so his big idea was, let's make it really easy to schedule a meeting. Let's make it as simple and as beautiful as possible. There were a bunch of other products on the market that did a similar thing, but they were more enterprisey, more clunky. They weren't as simple and beautiful. And so he spent his life savings. He went to the Ukraine to get it built by a Rails development shop. And so when I met him, the business was maybe 6 months old, no paying customers, had a handful of beta users. The product was working, but plugged in, set up Calendly for my Google Calendar, and it was awesome. The experience worked great. I loved the interface at the time. I plugged it into my email signature, schedule a meeting with me with my Calendly link. And I reached back to Tope Awatona. I said, "This is amazing. I'd love to book and place a check for $350,000 to invest in the business as the only investor." Nobody else was in the round, and so went from a product with a handful of users and no revenue to today, where it has many tens of millions of users and is one of the most popular scheduling applications in the world. And so it's been amazing to see the growth and development of that company. Now it's been 11 years.
Wow. Love that story. I didn't even know you were the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I heard about it through Micah, who's the co-founder of Domi here. Like, that's how I started using it. I think I started using it about 10 years ago, and love it. Been using it ever since, paid, to keep it and do work.
Yeah. It's only 8 a month, right? Great thing for the month.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like it saves you so many steps. And I still meet people who haven't heard about it. I'm like, you need to use Calendly.
I agree.
And I want to make sure I share because it's like, like you shared with your wonderful storytelling skills, here's Atlanta Ventures. Did you first, like you said, you got Atlanta, okay, here's Atlantic Tech Village. And then from that, you were able to, give a home to all these startups.
We've had over 2,000 startups over the years in the tech village. And so it's been amazing. Yeah.
Is this kind of like the Southeast Y Combinator, or is it more of a...
No, Y Combinator is more of an accelerator program with a defined cohort and a period of time and investment. Atlanta Tech Village is really a large community with physical office space and hundreds of events per year. So the easiest analogy is like if you take a WeWork, which is really popular and has all the co-working spaces, but you take a WeWork and you make it exclusively for tech entrepreneurs that have a proprietary product that they've created, and then you wrap it with a big bear hug of everything that an entrepreneur would want to help increase their chance of success. So mentors, advisors, peer groups, all kinds of continuing education, tons of networking groups, lots of specialty meetups like iOS meetups or cloud computing meetups. And then you wrap it all with a giant 100,000 square foot building that's exclusively dedicated to tech entrepreneurs. And so mix all those ingredients together, and we've just had lots and lots of good success stories come out of it.
And you started early too. I think now there's more challenges with investors and raising capital and things like that. And I think
it ebbs
you
and
mentioned
flows.
earlier.
It ebbs and flows. Yeah. There's periods
like
of time
is it like 1,000 fail? You'll get one that might win out of 1,000 investments. Or I'm not saying that you're the example, but
well, you're right that as an angel investor, there's a lot of thoughts out there that like, oh, if I invest in 5 or 10, I'll have one that'll pay for all the failures. And from my experience doing it for a while now, the vast majority don't work out, but there's a power law. So if one does work out, like a Calendly, it can pay for 1,000 that don't work out. And so my recommendation, at least on the angel investing front, is to plan on, before you write a check, and hope that you can, get a success. And it might, technically you could do it, but I would recommend budgeting for probably 30 investments. So you have a broad enough base and you can learn as you go, and you'll start to pick up patterns and things that resonate with your style and with the marketplace and all those kinds of things.
did you know that at some point you would be into ecosystem building?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. When I was an undergrad in college, I started at Duke. They have a thing called a house course. So as a student, you can propose your own course, pass fail, that other students take. You get a faculty sponsor, you build a syllabus. And so for several years as an undergrad, I was the teacher and course creator of a class that was called Internet Entrepreneurship and Startups. That was the official title of it. And so it was a real class. It was pass fail, had a bunch of people that signed up for it. And the way it worked is that we would write a business plan and we'd have guest speakers every week. And so even in college, I was doing community things to bring entrepreneurs together. And so it's just grown and grown and grown over the years.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta Tech Village is huge. Leading to my next question.
So go ahead. Tech Village, our original location in Buckhead, 13 years old now, 100,000 feet. 2 years ago, a friend of mine said, "Hey, David, there's this big section of downtown Atlanta that's in foreclosure." And so after Tech Village in Buckhead had done well, one of the most common questions that I got over the years was, when are you going to open a second location? And my answer was always, oh, this is one and done. We're going to focus really deeply right here. But after a few years of it doing really well, of course, I wanted to see what was out there. But by that time, the commercial real estate market was white hot, especially in Atlanta. And so the prices kept going up and up and up. And it wasn't the right time to potentially buy another building. And so, of course, COVID comes along and resets everything. Demand for office space goes way down, the vacancy goes way up, and so of course the price of buildings goes down as well. And so 2 years ago, a friend of mine told me about this attempted development in downtown Atlanta. And so a developer out of Germany had spent 7 years and had assembled over 50 buildings, 50. They had assembled almost 90 properties, counting a bunch of parking lots around the buildings. And it is 10 contiguous city blocks. So good old fashioned, city blocks, just like you would think, with a nice grid layout. And so, when my friend told me about this, I started doing some research and I reached out to some of my Tech Village friends and I said, hey, what would we do if we bought this failed development? And again, 50 plus buildings, 10 city blocks. And so we started texting back and forth some crazy ideas like, we could put an indoor ski slope on this parking lot, and we would do a helipad over here, and, just fun ideas. And so we said, okay, we need to go see this. Let's go see what we're talking about. And so we set up a time to meet with the current developers that were trying to sell it. It was in foreclosure, but they were trying to find somebody to come in and buy it before the foreclosure proceedings had completed on the courthouse steps. And so we met with them, and there was a group of 6 or 7 of us, and there were 2 of them, and we proceeded to spend 5 hours straight walking through these different buildings and getting the lay of the land and asking a million questions and going up on the rooftops of some of them to get different views of where a rooftop patio might go in the future. And after those 5 hours, we're like, wow, this is amazing. Because this section of downtown was where Atlanta started. So Atlanta was formed when 3 railways came together, and then they created a train station there called Union Station. And so you would step out of the station and you were in South Downtown Atlanta, what we call South Downtown today, but you were in the middle of downtown. And there was just a bunch of shops that got built over time. So department stores and merchants. And so the buildings in South Downtown, the ones that we ended up acquiring, so we bought the whole portfolio, and it creates this opportunity for a college campus-like experience, but for startups and for entrepreneurs. And so much like a college campus, like FSU has the academic building, so you might have the math and the chemistry building, and then you have the dorms and the places to live, and then you've got the fun side of it, whether it's Doak Campbell Stadium or all the different restaurants and bars and hangout spots. And so the big idea for our South Downtown Atlanta Tech Village is to recreate that college campus experience, but to do it for entrepreneurs. And so to continue the analogy where you've got the academic buildings like math and chemistry, in South Downtown now we have the robotics building and the cloud computing building and the AI building. And then where you've got the live side of things like a dormitory, we're taking the very first department store ever in Atlanta, built in the 1890s, and we're turning it into a hacker house dorm, but for entrepreneurs. It's loft apartments, really nice, cool loft apartments in a building from the 1800s. And then on the play side of things, we're building out 10 different restaurants right now. We're building out a town square with a stage for outdoor concerts. Wow. And then this whole neighborhood and all these buildings are directly next door to State Farm Arena, which hosts the Atlanta Hawks NBA team. And it's right next door to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which hosts the Atlanta Falcons and Atlanta United, the MLS team. And it's going to host 8 World Cup matches next summer. And so from a live, work, play point of view, we've got the academic buildings, the dormitory, all the restaurants, and then we're right next to all the major stadiums and arenas in Atlanta. And then we're right next door to 6 different live music venues that are already downtown. So we've got huge amounts of live music that's within a 10-minute walk of our neighborhood. So we're building the largest startup district in the United States right in the heart of downtown Atlanta. And so because it's the neighborhood where Atlanta started, literally the commercial district, the main street of original Atlanta, we're calling it the founding neighborhood for founders. So it's the neighborhood where Atlanta was founded, literally, and we're making it the home of founders and entrepreneurs.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
So we have we have 1 million square feet.
Oh my goodness.
Literally, yeah.
We need to take a tour. Well, okay, that leads to my next question, because you obviously, still visit Tallahassee, you have family here.
Yes.
And then you've invested or I don't know how you've acquired Killearn Country Club, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's investing back into the community.
Absolutely.
And improved it. So you obviously Tallahassee still holds a special place in your heart.
Yes, my family still lives there.
Yeah, that's great. And so
I, growing up in Killearn Country Club is where I learned how to play tennis and learned how to swim and learned how to play golf. And I would go to the summer camps, and it was just part of our life. We were right there in the neighborhood. And so as many country clubs have, across the country, a lot of them have fallen on hard times for a variety of different reasons. And so Killearn Country Club, over the years, didn't necessarily get the level of investment needed to keep it up to decent standards. And so really it had just been in a downward spiral for a long, long time. And then thankfully a group of local business people in Tallahassee had bought the club from the previous owner who had owned it for almost 30 years. And they had tried a bunch of different things to see if they could raise some money and get some things developed and improved at the country club. And they got some tennis courts resurfaced, and they had some work done on the 19th hole. But it was clear that the money wasn't there to really make it what it should be. And so I proposed buying it from the group of local business owners. And so we negotiated a little bit, and they agreed, and they wanted me to put some money into escrow so that there was money already sitting in the bank that could only go to improving the golf course and the facilities. And so I put a bunch of money in escrow and bought the club. And so we've been at it for 3 years now. Renovated the main golf course, have a new clubhouse that's coming out of the ground now that'll be ready in the summer, have a new maintenance shed, have a new short game facility, have a new short course, have a new logo. We renamed the club from Killearn Country Club. We got rid of country. It's a little outdated, and now we just call it the Killearn Club. And so we're working hard to bring it back to its glory days.
Okay. Yeah, I heard there's been several events there and tournaments, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
My dad loved golf, so he tried to teach me how to play.
It's a very, very difficult sport.
with three daughters. So yeah, I could probably hit, driving range, I'm fine. But when I go on the course, that's when I get pissed off.
And so one of the fun things that we're doing at Killearn is we are building the most high-tech clubhouse in the United States. So Tallahassee will have the most high-tech golf clubhouse in the country. And so what does that mean? That means we have normal clubhouse stuff, like a nice restaurant and bar and big patio. But it also means that we're going to have 8 different golf simulator bays, large bays inside of the clubhouse. And we're going to have a large digital putting game in the middle of the clubhouse. So you can go in there and you can play 1,000 different golf courses digitally, real golf balls, real golf clubs, but do it with high-end graphics, with radar, with high-speed cameras. And so it's going to be the most high-tech golf clubhouse in the United States in the middle of Tallahassee. And so that'll be ready next summer.
That's so cool. So you have to be a member. You got to sign up to be a member.
You do have to be a member. Right. We have hundreds of members already. So if you're in the business community in Tallahassee, you'll definitely be able to find a member. And so the idea is that in your example where it feels good to go to the driving range, but it feels challenging to go out on the course, when you go play a digital version of a course, and so Killearn itself, the green grass course, is already mapped digitally, and it's already on the golf simulator. So no matter where you are in the world, this very second, you can play Killearn digitally on the TrackMan. And the great thing about that is that anybody can play it at no charge. And then at the Killearn Clubhouse, if you want to play other courses, you want to play Killearn digitally or Greengrass, or you want to play Pebble Beach digitally or St. Andrews digitally, you can do it right in the Clubhouse in one of the 8 simulator bays. And so for people that are learning the game, or people that are intimidated by the game, or you just want to try something different and digital, the Killearn Clubhouse will be the most high-tech clubhouse in the United States.
I love that. Let me know when the headline's out, and we can reshare on City Clips.
Summer of 2026, we'll open it up.
Awesome. I would love to, because I know your time is valuable, and I would love to try to wrap up with a couple more questions. Because you're a master, obviously, at tech ecosystem building, what would you say as advice to our Tallahassee community, like North Florida? What are the opportunities you're seeing, and what can we do to speed up, just a successful ecosystem for our
tech community? On the ecosystem side, I'm a big fan of getting as many entrepreneurs as possible together in a physical space like Domi Station or the Atlanta Tech Village, and then really getting the community wrapped around them. So the community in the sense of the lawyers and the accountants and the marketing agency experts and everybody else that, it takes a village to raise a startup. And so having the mentors and advisors and having the continuing education and the meetup groups. And then one of the things that I'm a big fan of is really trying to get the local business community to buy local, right? So if you're a local business owner, a non-tech, not a startup person, and you got to go buy some piece of software. Every business now has tons of software products like the Calendly, but get the local businesses and the local governments, city and state and county, get them to try to buy locally. And so if there's a local company like a Calendly in Atlanta making some scheduling software, let's get all the local businesses to buy the Calendly product and become customers of it. Or let's get the local school system to become a Calendly customer so that when you do your parent-teacher conferences, you schedule it in Calendly. But this idea of getting the local businesses and the local governments to look at their local startups to become customers of theirs. I always like to say that the best form of startup financing, the best form of fundraising for a startup is a new customer, right? When you sign a new customer, that's revenue, that's non-dilutive, that's not venture capital. And so I would try to rally the local business community around becoming customers of your local startups.
I like that. That's a very unique advice, because I've heard different things, and a lot of the challenges for early stage startups is like, we need funding. Where do we find financing? And just like that seems to be the main challenge initially. So I love that. And
it's a chicken and egg problem, right? So if you don't have funding, it's hard to get your first customer. But if you can have a movement of the local businesses buying from the local startups, any startup that has 5 or 10 customers that are paying, the chance of them being able to raise money, fundraising, goes through the roof. And so get the local businesses to be the early customers of the startups, and then the startups it'll be way easier for them to raise money to go get the next 100 customers and then rinse and repeat.
That's awesome. Thank you. I mean, you give so much great advice on your blog too, so people can subscribe to you. And I mean, what would you like to end with to wrap it up in terms of words of wisdom?
My favorite piece of advice for entrepreneurs is to think about the entrepreneurial journey, especially the founding team and the early team, in the context of the hacker, the hipster, and the hustler. And so for myself, being a nerd, I always love being the hacker, the person that builds the stuff and writes the code and deploys the product. And then the hipster is the tastemaker. They are the one who curates the style, the look, and the feel, and the vibes. And you know it, when you walk into a Target, it looks different than walking into a Walmart. And so the hipster is the person that creates that experience. And then the hustler is the person who loves to sell. They love to go to market, find the customers. They love to develop the partnerships. And so the best founding teams, or the best early teams, from my experience, are ones that combine the three. So I might be the hacker, Adam might be the hipster, and Derek might be the hustler. And bringing the three of us together to do our things, and then to also, work as a team and to do all the things that are needed to build a business. But having those three skill sets and being intentional about it, thinking through the hacker, the hipster, and the hustler. So that's my piece of advice for entrepreneurs.
This was so fascinating, and I know we didn't even touch the trending topic of AI, but people can check out your blog about that. You gave a great tip because I was able to read one, and for anyone who's considering an AI startup, you mentioned get with other business owners to
yes,
get some ideas.
we have 10 years ahead of us of regular businesses becoming more AI businesses. And so there's going to be 1,000 new software products invented to help businesses with AI. And then there's going to be tens of thousands of new consultancies created to help businesses migrate to be an AI business or use AI more frequently in their day-to-day activities. So there's just a full decade ahead of us of great new innovations and consultancies that are going to be built.
Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about all of this.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So hold tight. I'll see you on the other side.